We have been shouting into the void for 100 years. Radio waves, television broadcasts, and the ultimate act of cosmic hubris, the Voyager Golden Record. A map, a return address, a polite invitation carved in gold, sent hurtling into the abyss. We assume that if anyone is out there, they are like us, curious, lonely, perhaps even benevolent. But this optimism is a fatal biological flaw. It is a myth that ignores the fundamental nature of life itself. The silence of the universe isn't proof that we are alone. It is the loudest warning we have ever ignored. The reason you don't hear anything is simple. The smart ones are staying quiet. By the end of this hour, you will understand why our silence is not just preferable. It is the only mathematical guarantee of our survival.
Let's dismantle the Fermi Paradox. Enrico Fermi looked at the stars and asked, "Where is everyone?" Given the age of the universe and the abundance of planets, the sky should be teeming with signals. The fact that it isn't is usually explained by the Great Filter, some catastrophic event that wipes out civilizations before they can travel the stars. But there is a darker alternative. Imagine a forest at night. It is deathly quiet. Is it quiet because nothing lives there? No. It is quiet because the forest is full of predators. To make a sound is to reveal your location. To reveal your location is to invite death. We are the foolish child walking through this dark forest, lighting a flare and screaming for friendship. We have mistaken the hunter's camouflage for an empty room.
To understand this dread, we must strip away human morality and look at cosmic sociology. It rests on two terrifyingly simple axioms. First, survival is the primary need of civilization. Second, civilization continuously grows and expands, but the total matter in the universe remains constant. This creates a zero-sum game on a galactic scale. Resources are finite, space is finite, and every other civilization is a potential competitor for that finite energy. In this equation, good and evil do not exist. There is only probability. If another civilization can crush you to secure their future energy needs, the mathematics of survival dictates that they must. We are not special. We are merely matter that hasn't been harvested yet.
But surely a sufficiently advanced civilization would be peaceful. This is the technological pacifism myth. It fails because of the chain of suspicion. Even if a civilization is benevolent, they cannot know if are benevolent, and they cannot know if we think are benevolent. It is an infinite regression of doubt. Furthermore, distances in space mean communication takes centuries. By the time you receive a message saying "we come in peace," the sender could have evolved into a warmongering empire. You cannot trust the lag. Therefore, the safest course of action, the only logical move for a rational species, is to eliminate the potential threat before it can ever develop the capacity to hurt you. This is the preemptive strike doctrine.
Consider the concept of the technological explosion. Human history proves that progress is not linear, it is exponential. We went from horse-drawn carriages to splitting the atom in less than a century. To an immortal alien observer, that is a blink of an eye. If they see us now, primitive and loud, they know that in a mere cosmic second, we could rival them. We are a baby tiger, currently harmless, but biologically destined to become a killer. A hunter does not wait for the tiger to grow claws. He shoots it in the cradle. This is why we have found no ruins, no signals, no friends. The universe is a graveyard of baby tigers who made too much noise.
So, what does this mean for our current endeavors? SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, might be the most dangerous organization in human history. Every time we point a radio telescope at a promising exoplanet and ping it, we are playing Russian roulette with a fully loaded gun. We assume that intelligence implies morality,
That is a projection of humanism onto a cold, indifferent void. Intelligence is merely the capacity to solve problems, and in a resource-scarce universe, other civilizations are the problem. We are broadcasting our coordinates to entities that view extinction not as a tragedy, but as a pest control measure.
Let's look at the mathematics of hiding. The Kardashev scale ranks civilizations by energy consumption. A Type 2 civilization harnesses the power of their entire sun. To us, they would be gods. But to a Type 3 civilization, they are bugs. The dark forest theory suggests that the most advanced civilizations are not building Dyson spheres that glow in the dark. They are likely manipulating physics to cloak their star systems entirely. They aren't invisible because they don't exist. They are invisible because they are terrified. The fact that we see stars might simply mean we are looking at the safe zones where the wars haven't started yet, or the graveyards where the wars are already over.
This brings us to the ultimate existential horror, the cleanup instinct. If the universe is a dark forest, there are snipers everywhere. But ammunition costs energy. A sniper won't shoot at a rock. He shoots at life. How does he detect life? Entropy. Life orders chaos. We create structures, signals, heat. We reverse entropy locally while increasing it universally. To a sufficiently advanced sensor, Earth is a glowing hotspot of unnatural order. We are an anomaly in the thermal background. We don't even need to send radio waves. Our industrial heat signature alone is a beacon. We are already leaking our location. The clock started ticking the moment we lit the first steam engine.
But you tell yourself, space is vast, distance is our shield. That is the first myth we must euthanize. In a universe billions of years old, a civilization only needs a head start of 1 million years, a cosmic blink, to possess technology indistinguishable from divinity. To them, the distance between stars isn't a barrier, it's simply a calculation of latency. We assume we are hidden because we are quiet, but if you walk through a dark forest and hear a twig snap, do you assume it's the wind, or do you ready your weapon? We are the ones snapping twigs. We are broadcasting our coordinates, not just with radio, but with the fundamental restructuring of matter.
Consider the axioms of cosmic sociology. First, survival is the primary need of civilization. Second, civilization continuously expands over time, but the total matter in the universe remains constant. This creates a zero-sum game of terrifying proportions. You might argue for diplomacy, for benevolence. That is your biological optimism talking, a survival trait evolved for a planet, not a galaxy. In the cosmos, there is no common cultural ground. There is no trust. There is only the chain of suspicion. If I see you, I cannot know if you are benevolent. If you are benevolent, I cannot know if you think I am benevolent. Mathematical game theory converges on one rational solution: the preemptive strike.
This brings us to the nature of the attack. Hollywood has lied to you. There will be no motherships hovering over New York, no laser battles. That is inefficient. Advanced civilizations don't wage war, they perform pest control. They don't send soldiers, they send laws of physics. Imagine a projectile accelerated to near light speed, a photoid. It impacts our sun. The star explodes, consuming the solar system. The attacker doesn't even slow down to watch. It is impersonal. It is absolute. We are not enemies to be conquered. We are a variable to be removed from the equation to preserve the stability of the local cluster.
So, why haven't we heard them? The Fermi Paradox isn't a paradox. It's a horror story. The silence of the universe isn't because life is rare. The universe is silent because the loud ones are already dead. Every empty star system we detect might be a graveyard, a monument to a civilization that made the mistake of picking up the phone. We are currently screaming into the void, asking, is anyone out there, expecting a greeting. The only reason we haven't received an answer is that the signal hasn't reached a hunter yet. Or perhaps it has, and the reply is already on its way at the speed of light.
But there is a fate worse than destruction. Some civilizations don't just destroy, they flatten. If the hunter decides that a photide strike is too crude, or if the target is too advanced to be destroyed by mere energy, they deploy a dimensional strike. They collapse three-dimensional space into 2 dimensions. The solar system becomes a painting, a masterwork of death frozen in 0 depth. You, your history, your biology, unspooled into an infinite flat sheet. This is the ultimate weapon, reducing the complexity of the universe to ensure safety. The dark forest is not just dangerous, it is collapsing in on itself.
But here is the most terrifying realization, the one that keeps astrobiologists awake at night. This destruction, this flattening of entire solar systems, isn't an act of hatred. It isn't war. It is simply hygiene. The entity launching the foil doesn't hate the target any more than you hate the bacteria you scrub from your kitchen counter. You are simply removing a potential pathogen before it multiplies. And this brings us to the great silence. We assume the universe is quiet because it is empty, but the dark forest theory suggests a far grimmer conclusion. The universe is not silent because there is no one there. It is silent because everyone who survived knows better than to speak. By the end of this analysis, you will understand why the Fermi Paradox isn't a curiosity, it is a graveyard, and we are the only ones foolish enough to be dancing on the tombs.
To understand why genocide is the default state of the cosmos, we must look at the 2 axioms of cosmic sociology. First, survival is the primary need of civilization. Second, civilization continuously grows and expands, but the total matter in the universe remains constant. It is a simple mathematical equation with a bloody result. Finite resources plus exponential growth equals inevitable conflict. But you might ask, why not diplomacy? Why not trade? In the vastness of space, there is a concept known as the chain of suspicion. The distance between stars creates an insurmountable delay in communication. If you send a message of peace, it might take centuries to arrive. By the time it does, can you trust the sender is still the same? Can they trust you? In this lag, suspicion festers. Benevolence is a variable you cannot calculate.
This creates the ultimate stalemate, broken only by the concept of the technological explosion. This is the jolt that pulls the trigger. On a cosmic scale, a civilization can leap from stone tools to star-killing weaponry in the blink of an eye. If you detect a neighbor who is primitive, you might think they are harmless, but in the time it takes your light to reach them and return, they could have surpassed you. They are a baby with a loaded gun, and they are growing up fast. Therefore, you cannot wait, you cannot assess, you cannot risk mercy. If you spot a location, no matter how primitive, the safest mathematical move is to destroy it immediately. It is not cruelty, it is the cold logic of survival. In a dark forest, if you step on a twig, the only safe reaction for the hunter is to shoot toward the sound.
So what does this make us? What is humanity in this grand, terrified silence? We are the child shouting in the dark. For decades, we have been broadcasting our location, radio waves, television signals, the Arecibo message, the golden record on Voyager. We have sent maps to our doorstep into the void. We call it exploration. A more advanced civilization would call it a suicide note. Every signal we send is a coordinate. Every hello is a target lock. We operate under the delusion that an advanced species must be morally superior, that technology brings enlightenment. This is a fatal projection of human optimism onto a cold, indifferent universe. Physics does not care about morality. It only cares about vectors, mass, and the elimination of variables. Consider the hunter hiding in the trees again. He hears a shout. He doesn't know if the shouter is a threat, a friend, or food. But he knows that revealing himself to check exposes his own position to other hunters. The cost of verification is death. The cost of a strike is just a bullet. It is an asymmetric wager. The universe is likely full of graveyards of civilizations that hesitated, civilizations that tried to verify before they fired. They are gone. The ones remaining, the ones listening to our radio broadcasts right now, are the ones who shoot first. We are currently enjoying a window of safety only because our signals haven't traveled far enough, or because we are too insignificant to waste a photoid on yet. But we are getting louder.
This is the myth of the first contact scenario. We imagine a handshake on the White House lawn. The reality is much faster and much quieter. It is a dual-vector foil flattening us into a painting, or a photoid turning our sun into a nova. There will be no negotiation. There will be no exchange of culture. Just a sudden, absolute cessation of existence. Silence is survival. Noise is death. And we are the loudest thing in our sector. So when you look up at the night sky and see nothing but empty darkness, do not feel lonely. Feel grateful. The emptiness means they haven't fired yet. The silence is the only thing protecting us from the hunters in the dark. But we didn't stay silent. That is the tragedy. If the universe is a dark forest filled with silent hunters, then humanity is a child shouting into the night, waving a torch, desperate to be found. By the end of this analysis, you will understand why the solution to the Fermi Paradox isn't that life is rare, it's that life is hiding. The big reason you see emptiness isn't a lack of biology, it is the presence of fear. We are going to dismantle the myth of the friendly alien and replace it with the mathematical certainty of game theory. We have already committed a tactical error that reverberates across light years. We sent a map to our doorstep. And the reason you should be terrified is not because they are monsters, but because they are rational. In a universe of finite resources, genocide isn't evil. It is simply efficient. Let's strip away the Star Trek optimism. The first axiom of cosmic sociology is that survival is the primary need of civilization. The second is that civilization continuously grows and expands, but the total matter in the universe remains constant. Combine these two undeniable facts, and you do not get a federation of planets. You get a mathematical pressure cooker. Consider the exponential growth of technology. It took humans millions of years to discover fire, but only a few thousand to split the atom. To an observer watching from 1,000 light years away, those two events happened almost simultaneously. This is the jolt that breaks our psychological safety. We are not a primitive species to them. We are a dormant virus. In the eyes of a superior civilization, the difference between a bug and a rival is merely a moment of time.
This leads us to the chain of suspicion. Imagine two snipers in a dark valley. Neither knows the other's location, and neither knows the other's moral code. You might argue that communication could solve this, that we could negotiate peace. But here is the physics problem that kills diplomacy: the speed of light. Distances are too vast. By the time you say hello and they reply, "We come in peace," centuries have passed. Civilizations can evolve from benevolent democracies to fascist war machines in the time it takes a radio wave to cross the gap. You cannot trust who they will be when the message arrives. Therefore, the only safe move, the only mathematically sound move, is to fire the moment you detect movement. Communication is impossible. Trust is a suicide pact. The silence isn't empty. It is a standoff.
So, what happens when we look at our own history through this lens? In 1974, we utilized the Arecibo Observatory to transmit a message towards the globular star cluster M13. We sent our DNA structure, our population data, and our location relative to pulsars.
We essentially uploaded our tactical weaknesses to the galactic internet. At the time, we called it scientific curiosity. In the context of the Dark Forest, it was a death wish. The signal was broadcast with an effective isotropic radiated power of 20 trillion watts. It was, for a brief moment, the brightest object in the galaxy in that frequency. If there is a listener, they didn't need to search for us. We screamed our coordinates. And now, the light of that scream is 50 years deep into the forest, washing over star systems that may have already dispatched a cleaning crew.
But the horror isn't just that they are coming, it is they will arrive. Forget the Hollywood myth of invading armadas and laser battles. Advanced civilizations do not engage in crude warfare, they engage in physics manipulation. Why risk a fleet when you can launch a photoid, a small particle accelerated to near light speed to strike a star? The impact doesn't destroy the planet directly, it destabilizes the sun, causing a nova that vaporizes the entire system. It is clean, it is cheap, it is impersonal. This is the ultimate nihilism of the cosmos. Your extinction will not be a war, it will be a pest control ticket filed by a bureaucrat who never even looked at your culture's art. We are preparing for soldiers, but the universe is preparing a dual vector foil to flatten us into 2 dimensions.
But understanding the weapon, the photide, the foil, is the easy part. Physics is predictable. The true horror, the one that should keep you awake at night, is not the how, it is the why. Why would a superior civilization, essentially a god to us, bother to swat a fly? This brings us to the first axiom of cosmic sociology. Survival is the primary need of civilization. And the second axiom, civilization continuously grows and expands, but the total matter in the universe remains constant. Combine these 2 undeniable truths, and you do not get a federation of starfarers holding hands. You get a mathematical cage match where the only prize is delaying your own heat death. We like to think that advanced intelligence leads to advanced morality. That is the $10 billion mistake SETI has been making for decades. Intelligence does not breed mercy, it breeds efficiency. And in a finite universe, your existence is an inefficiency to someone else's expansion. Let's apply the chain loop logic to a conversation across light years. Suppose we find a neighbor. We are benevolent, we assume they are benevolent. But here is the jagged edge of reality, the chain of suspicion. I know I mean you no harm, but I cannot know what you are thinking. And even if I knew you were benevolent now, I cannot know if you think I'm benevolent. And even if we both trust each other today, can I guarantee your values won't drift in 1,000 years? Across the vast darkness, information transmission is slow, but suspicion is instantaneous. This is the jolt you need to internalize. In the cosmos, distance doesn't just create lag, it creates a distinct mathematical impossibility of trust. Without trust, the safest move, the rational move, is to fire before you are fired upon. It's not cruelty, it's game theory.
You might argue, but we are ants to them. Why fear an ant? This is where the concept of technological explosion dismantles your hope. On the scale of the universe, the difference between the Stone Age and the Quantum Age is a rounding error. It took humanity millions of years to pick up a rock, but only a few thousand to split the atom. To an immortal observer, that is an instantaneous detonation of capability. If a civilization spots us today and we are primitive, by the time their fleet arrives, we could have surpassed them. We are not harmless ants. We are explosive, exponential variables. In the eyes of the dark forest hunter, we are a baby tiger. Cute, perhaps, but you don't leave a baby tiger alive in your nursery. You drown it before it grows teeth. This is why silence is survival. To speak is to reveal your coordinates. To reveal your coordinates is to accelerate your evolution in the eyes of the enemy.
So we look at the great silence, the Fermi Paradox, and we call it a mystery. We wonder if we are alone. The dark forest theory suggests a terrifying alternative. The universe is teeming with life. It is full of noise, culture, and war. But the smart ones, the survivors, they are hiding. They are ghosting the cosmos. The silence we hear is not an empty room. It is a forest at night,
where every predator is holding its breath, listening for the snap of a twig. Humanity? We are the idiot child wandering into that forest, screaming, "Hello, is anyone there?" lighting a bonfire and broadcasting our location on every frequency physics allows. We assume that if anyone hears us, they will bring wisdom. We forget that in the history of our own planet, when a superior civilization meets an inferior one, the result is never integration. It is colonization. It is erasure.
Let's break the myth of cosmic diplomacy once and for all. Diplomacy requires leverage. What leverage does Earth have against a Type 3 civilization? We have resources they can synthesize. We have knowledge they surpassed eons ago. We have culture they cannot comprehend. We offer nothing. We are only a risk that we might one day expand into their territory, a risk that we might develop a dual-vector foil of our own. In the calculus of the universe, the cost of destroying a star system is negligible compared to the risk of letting a potential rival survive. This isn't evil, it is bureaucratic necessity. The universe is not a fairy tale, it is a dark room, and we are flicking a lighter on and off, hoping to see a face, when we should be praying we remain unseen. The silence isn't a problem to be solved. The silence is the only shield we have left.
So, what happens next? If we accept the dark forest hypothesis, every signal we have ever sent is a death warrant traveling at the speed of light. It may already be too late. A photo-eyed may be halfway here, a silent bullet moving through the void, aimed at our sun. Does this lead to nihilism? Yes, but a specific kind, scientific nihilism. It strips away our arrogance. It tells us we are not special, we are merely present. And in that presence, our survival depends not on hope, but on discipline. The discipline to shut up, the discipline to hide, the discipline to understand that in a universe of hunters, the greatest victory is not conquering the stars, it is surviving the night without being eaten. We must stop looking for friends and start preparing for the landlord, because the rent is due and the currency is extinction.
But before we succumb to that extinction, we have to dismantle the single most dangerous myth plaguing our species, the assumption that advanced equals moral. This is the fatal error in our logic, the specific cognitive glitch that might have already doomed us. We look at our own history, the slow crawl from barbarism to diplomacy, and we assume a galactic trajectory follows the same curve. We believe that a civilization capable of faster than light travel must have transcended the urge to kill. But this is not science, this is projection. It is a comforting bedtime story we tell ourselves to cope with the silence. The data suggests the exact opposite. Intelligence does not correlate with mercy, it correlates with efficiency. And in a universe with finite resources, the most efficient way to ensure your survival is not to negotiate with the new neighbor, but to burn their house down before they learn how to build a gun.
Consider the sheer arrogance of the Arecibo message. In 1974, we broadcast our DNA, our population, and our exact coordinate location toward the M13 cluster. We screamed our address into the void at 20 trillion watts. Why? Because we assumed that anything listening would be like a benevolent parent. But let's apply the chain loop of suspicion to this scenario. If a civilization receives that signal, they learn two things immediately. 1, we exist. 2, we are naive enough to reveal ourselves. In the dark forest, naivety is a distinct evolutionary marker. It signals a species that hasn't yet faced a true predator. It signals food. By the time that radio wave hits a receiver, we haven't just introduced ourselves, we have submitted our resume for extinction. The silence of the universe isn't proof that no one is out there. The silence is the sound of everyone else loading their weapons.
Let's look at the axioms of cosmic sociology. First, survival is the primary need of civilization. Second, civilization continuously grows and expands, but the total matter in the universe remains constant. This creates a zero-sum game on a galactic scale. It is simple arithmetic. If you see another civilization, you cannot know their true intentions. You cannot know if they are benevolent or malicious. But more importantly, you cannot know what they think are. This is the chain of suspicion. Even if you are both peaceful, you cannot be sure the other believes you are peaceful, and they cannot be sure that you believe that they believe you are peaceful. The chain of doubt extends infinitely. In this mathematical deadlock, there is only one logical move that guarantees your safety: the preemptive strike. Hesitation is not a virtue, it is a calculation error.
But the horror goes deeper when you factor in the technological explosion. This is the variable that removes all possibility of diplomacy. On a cosmic timescale, the difference between a Stone Age tribe and a godlike civilization is a blink of an eye. If you detect a primitive civilization today, you cannot leave them alone. Why? Because in exponential time, they will rival you. They will surpass you. A baby tiger is cute, but it grows into a man-eater. Therefore, the moment you detect a spark of life, no matter how small, you are not looking at a harmless bug. You are looking at a future threat. The optimal strategy isn't to wait and see. The optimal strategy is to crush the egg before it hatches. We are not safe because we are primitive. We are in danger specifically because we have the potential to stop being primitive.
So when we look up at the night sky and see nothing, we are not looking at an empty room. We are looking at a graveyard where the tombstones are hidden. The Fermi Paradox is not a scientific puzzle, it is a survival filter. The civilizations that survived are the ones that learned to keep their mouths shut. The ones that broadcasted their hope, they were cleansed. This is the dark forest hypothesis stripped of its sci-fi romance. It is the application of game theory to biology. We are currently the noisy child walking through a forest full of wolves, ringing a bell, shouting for our mother. We think the lack of response means we are alone, but the snapping twig behind us, that isn't a friend coming to say hello. That is the landlord coming to collect.
Consider the silence of the night sky. We call it the Fermi Paradox, the discrepancy between the probability of alien life and our lack of evidence for it. Optimists say space is too big, pessimists say life is rare. But the dark forest theory offers a third, more terrifying option. Everyone is listening, but no one is speaking. Silence is not empty, it is a camouflage. Evolution on Earth favors the predator that moves quietly and the prey that stays still. Why would the cosmos be different? We look at the stars and see a playground. An ancient civilization looks at the stars and sees a hunting ground. The silence is the only armor they have left, and we are systematically stripping ours away.
Apply the logic of exponential growth. A civilization that can travel between stars needs energy, vast, consumption-heavy energy. They will expand. They must expand. The universe has finite resources. This makes every encounter a zero-sum game. You cannot trust their intentions because the stakes are your entire existence. If there is even a 1% chance they might destroy you to secure their future, the only rational mathematical move is to destroy them first. This isn't malice, it isn't evil. It is the cold, unyielding algebra of survival. In this forest, there is no morality, only ballistics. The first one to fire lives. The one who hesitates becomes history.
So, what have we done? For the last century, we have been screaming. Radio waves, television broadcasts, high-power radar. We sent the Voyager probes with maps to our front door. We engraved our biology, our weaknesses, and our location onto gold records and flung them into the abyss. We treat contact as a diplomatic inevitability, assuming that technological advancement correlates with ethical evolution. This is a lethal anthropomorphism. We are projecting our own naive morality onto entities that may view us as nothing more than a bacterial infection. We rang the dinner bell. Now we are just waiting to see what comes to the table.
But here is the thought that should keep you awake at night.
The silence of the universe is not proof of absence. It is proof of fear. Consider the rabbit in the forest. It does not scream to announce its presence. It does not broadcast its location to the wolves. It freezes. It hides. It understands that in a biome filled with predators, noise is a death sentence. By contrast, humanity has spent the last century screaming into the void, assuming that any civilization capable of hearing us has evolved beyond the primal urge to kill. We assume that intelligence leads to benevolence. This is the high road fallacy. But evolution on Earth teaches a different, bloodier lesson. Intelligence is not a tool for morality, it is a weapon for dominance. The smartest hunter is not the kindest, he is simply the most efficient.
To understand why the silence is survival, we must apply the axioms of cosmic sociology. First, survival is the primary need of any civilization. Second, civilization continuously expands over time, but the total matter in the universe remains constant. This creates a mathematical inevitability, a zero-sum game played on a galactic scale. Imagine the universe not as an infinite frontier, but as a dark room. Every civilization is a hunter with a gun, treading softly, breathing shallowly. They are not evil, they are simply logical. If they hear a sound, a radio wave, a signal, a Voyager probe, they cannot know if the source is a benevolent angel or a starving demon. They cannot verify intent across light years. The only safe variable, the only variable that guarantees their own survival, is to eliminate the source of the noise before it eliminates them.
This creates the chain of suspicion. Even if a civilization is peaceful, they must assume we might not be. And even if they assume we are peaceful now, they know about the technological explosion. On a cosmic timescale, the difference between the Stone Age and the Nuclear Age is a blink of an eye. A harmless civilization today could become a galaxy-devouring threat tomorrow. Therefore, the superior strategic move is always a preemptive strike. It is not personal, it is not hateful, it is simply cleaning. This is why the universe looks empty. It is not empty, it is full of graveyards. The civilizations that survived are the ones that learned to shut up. The ones that broadcasted their existence, they were the ones who were identified, targeted, and removed from the equation.
We look at the stars and see wonder. A dark forest civilization looks at the stars and sees crosshairs. The scariest part of this theory isn't the invasion. Hollywood has conditioned us to expect fleets of ships and ground wars. That is inefficient. A sufficiently advanced civilization doesn't need to land on our lawn to destroy us. They would view a ground war the way we view fighting bacteria with a sword. No, the destruction would be casual, economical, and instant. A photoid strike on our sun to cause a nova, or a collapse of spatial dimensions. We wouldn't even see it coming. One moment we are debating politics and economy, and the next, the solar system is simply erased, deleted like a typo in a cosmic manuscript.
So we return to the dinner bell. We have sent our maps, we have announced our biology, we have practically begged for contact. And now, the delay in response is the only thing saving us. But light takes time to travel. Perhaps the signal has already been received. Perhaps the hunter has already turned his head. Perhaps the weapon is already on its way, traveling at light speed, silent and invisible until the moment of impact. The silence of the universe is not a peaceful meadow. It is a held breath, and we are the only ones foolish enough to be exhaling loudly. If the dark forest theory is true, our greatest achievement, our desire to reach out, is actually our suicide note.
But what happens when the suicide note is read? There is a specific, terrifying mathematical inevitability that very few astronomers are willing to discuss publicly. This is the black domain paradox, and understanding it is the only way to comprehend why our extinction might already be calculated. Stay with me.
because by the end of this analysis, you will realize that the silence of the cosmos isn't an absence of life. It is a crowded room where everyone is holding a gun. We must first dismantle the myth of the benevolent elder race. We operate under the delusion that biological evolution trends toward morality. We assume that a civilization capable of interstellar travel must have transcended violence. This is anthropomorphic arrogance. In the dark forest, advanced age does not signify wisdom or kindness. It signifies only one thing: extreme proficiency in preemptive murder. The oldest civilizations aren't the philosophers, they are the snipers.
Let us strip away the romance and look at the game theory. In a universe constrained by the speed of light, every piece of information you receive is a ghost. By the time you detect a neighbor, they could have evolved, weaponized, or launched a strike centuries ago. This lag creates the chain of suspicion. You cannot know their true intent. You cannot know if they think you are a threat. And crucially, you cannot know if they think that are a threat. This infinite regression of doubt is computationally unsolvable. In this environment, hesitation is fatal. The only rational move, the absolute mathematical optimum, is to eliminate the variable before it can calculate your position. Here is the jolt. Genocide in the dark forest is not an act of evil. It is the highest form of altruism toward one's own species.
We cling to the axiom that the universe is vast enough for everyone. This is a biological error. Life expands exponentially, matter remains constant. This is the fundamental friction of cosmic sociology. Every civilization that does not die young will eventually demand more energy than its local star can provide. They must consume to survive. When two expanding entities exist in a finite container, conflict is not a possibility, it is a thermodynamic certainty. We are currently lighting a signal fire in a room filled with petrol and invisible gunmen, believing the warmth will attract friends. Consider this: the cosmic microwave background radiation might not be the afterglow of the Big Bang. It could simply be the thermal exhaust of 1 billion ancient galactic wars. We are late to the party, and the floor is already sticky with blood.
If the floor is sticky with blood, then our radio telescopes are not scientific instruments. They are dinner bells ringing in a famine. We look at the silence of the universe and call it the Great Silence, interpreting it as a lack of life. This is the height of human arrogance. We assume that if others existed, they would be as loud and reckless as we are. But consider the survivor's bias. The noisy civilizations are the ones that get extinguished first. The silence isn't empty, it is disciplined. It is the tactical camouflage of 1 billion worlds holding their breath. By the end of this transmission, you will understand why the emptiness of space is not a void to be explored, but a hiding spot we have foolishly abandoned. The big reason we haven't found aliens isn't that we are alone, it is that we are the only ones stupid enough to speak. To understand this dread, we must remove human morality from the equation. Morality is an evolutionary byproduct of social mammals, useful for tribe cohesion, but utterly irrelevant on a galactic scale. In the dark forest, there is no good or evil. There is only risk assessment. Axiom 1. Survival is the primary need of civilization. Axiom 2. Civilization continuously expands and grows over time, but the total matter in the universe remains constant. This creates a mathematical deadlock. Resources are finite. Space is finite. Yet the hunger of every civilization is exponential. When you calculate the energy requirements of a Type 2 civilization, you realize that your neighbor is not a potential friend. They are a rival for the very atoms that make up your star. The conflict is baked into the physics of existence.
This brings us to the chain of suspicion. Imagine two hunters in this dark forest. They cannot communicate instantly due to the light speed barrier. If Hunter A sees Hunter B, he cannot determine if B is benevolent or malicious. Even if B is benevolent, B cannot know if A is benevolent, and A cannot know that B knows that A is benevolent.
This infinite regression of doubt is unbreakable. It is a logic loop that only has one exit condition, the preemptive strike. Waiting to verify intent is a death sentence because of the technological explosion. In the time it takes to say hello across light years, a primitive society can evolve into a godlike entity capable of vaporizing your solar system. You do not strike because you hate them. You strike because the math leaves you no choice.
We rely on the Drake equation to estimate the number of active civilizations, but we forget the variable of cleanup. The universe looks pristine because the messes are vaporized efficiently. A sufficiently advanced civilization acts as a cosmic immune system, identifying the virus of expanding life forms and neutralizing them before they consume the host galaxy. We are currently broadcasting our DNA, our location, and our technological level to the void. We are shouting, "Here I am growing, I have resources," into a jungle at night. The skepticism you feel right now, that hope that perhaps advanced life has transcended violence, is a biological coping mechanism. It is the sheep theorizing that the wolf must be a vegetarian because the grass is so plentiful.
Consider the Fermi Paradox again under this light. Where is everybody? They are dead, or they are hiding. The civilizations that survived are the ones that mastered the art of silence. They likely possess technology that dampens their heat signatures, shields their radio leakage, and cloaks their stars. They live in Dyson spheres painted black. The only signals we detect, the fast radio bursts, the strange dimming of Tabby's star, these aren't natural phenomena or friendly beacons. They are likely muzzle flashes. They are the debris fields of battles fought millions of years ago, the light of which is just now reaching our naive eyes. We are archaeologists digging in a minefield, mistaking the click of a trigger for the sound of discovery. So, what is the $10 billion mistake mentioned at the start? It is the James Webb Telescope. It is SETI. It is every probe we send past the Kuiper Belt. We are investing global fortunes into a suicide pact. The big reason silence is survival is that the universe is not a community. It is a dark room filled with armed strangers. The moment you strike a match to see who is there, you become the only visible target. The silence of the universe is not a mystery to be solved. It is a warning to be heeded. We should not be listening for messages. We should be building a mute button for Earth, burying our transmitters, and praying that the signal fire we've already lit hasn't been seen by the eyes watching from the dark. But here lies the most dangerous myth we've ever told ourselves, the assumption of benevolence. For decades, our scientists, led by the optimistic gaze of figures like Carl Sagan, postulated that any civilization advanced enough to span the stars must have transcended its violent impulses. We told ourselves that technological maturity requires moral maturity. We convinced ourselves that the aliens would be teachers, not conquerors. This is the $10 billion mistake. It is a projection of human hope onto a canvas of cold, indifferent vacuum. Look at our own history. When a technologically superior civilization meets a primitive one, the result is rarely an exchange of philosophy. It is almost always displacement, enslavement, or eradication. Why do we assume the laws of biology suspend themselves at the edge of the atmosphere? In the grand calculus of evolution, wisdom does not correlate with survival. Lethality does.
To understand why the silence is screaming at us, we must accept two terrifying axioms of cosmic sociology. First, survival is the primary need of any civilization. Second, civilization continuously grows and expands, but the total matter in the universe remains constant. It is simple, brutal arithmetic. We are not neighbors in a boundless suburbia. We are starving rats trapped in a cage that never gets bigger, while the population doubles every generation. Every other civilization is a potential competitor for the energy of the same stars. If they exist, they need the resources we are currently sitting on. You might argue for trade or diplomacy, but those concepts rely on a shared framework of value. In a universe separated by light years,
Where species differ biologically, psychologically, and morally, there is no common ground. There is only the zero-sum game. In a finite universe, your continued existence is an act of theft against mine.
This brings us to the chain of suspicion. Even if a civilization is inherently peaceful, even if they have no desire to crush us, they cannot know if we feel the same. Communication across light years takes centuries. If we send a message saying, "We come in peace," and it takes 400 years to get a reply, we are left vulnerable for generations. In that time, we could develop weapons to destroy them. They know this. They know that we know this. This creates a feedback loop of paranoia that cannot be broken by diplomacy. Because distance creates a time lag, trust becomes mathematically impossible. When you cannot ascertain the intentions of the stranger in the dark, and when that stranger holds a gun that could vaporize your planet, the only rational move, the only move that guarantees your survival, is to shoot first. Trust is a luxury that biological organisms cannot afford on a galactic scale.
Consider the concept of the technological explosion. To a civilization millions of years old, humanity is a terrifying anomaly. We went from banging rocks together to splitting the atom in a blink of cosmic time. In another 200 years, we might be capable of manipulating the fabric of space-time itself. If an advanced alien species spots us now, they don't see a harmless primitive culture. They see a baby snake. We are weak now, but we are growing exponentially faster than they are. If they wait to see if we are friendly, they risk us surpassing them and becoming the threat. Therefore, the safest time to eliminate humanity is not when we are a threat, but right now, while we are still in the cradle. We assume our weakness protects us. It does not. To the universe, a civilization in its infancy is indistinguishable from a cancer in early metastasis.
So, where are the bodies? If the universe is a slaughterhouse, why don't we see the blood? This is the most chilling realization of the dark forest theory. We don't see the bodies because the hunters are efficient. A truly advanced civilization doesn't invade with fleets of spaceships that is clumsy and reveals their location. They send a photoanide, a small piece of matter accelerated to near light speed to strike a star, causing it to go nova and sterilize the entire system. Or they unfold a dimension to collapse the space around a planet. The destruction is instant, silent, and total. It looks like a natural phenomenon to the untrained eye. We aren't alone because the universe is empty. We are alone because the universe is effective at cleaning up the mess. The silence is not an absence of life. It is the hush of a graveyard after the burial is complete.
This leads us back to the great irony of our search for extraterrestrial intelligence. We have built massive ears to listen and massive transmitters to shout. We have sent maps to our home aboard Voyager. We have broadcast our DNA structure and our location relative to pulsars. We are like a child wandering through a jungle at night, screaming for attention, unaware that the eyes glowing in the underbrush do not belong to our parents. Every signal we send is a coordinate for a weapon we cannot comprehend. The Fermi Paradox is not a riddle. It is a tactical error. We have spent decades screaming into the void, unaware that the void has ears, and it has been hungry for a very long time. The question isn't, where are they? The question is, how much time do we have left before they arrive?
But to understand exactly how much time remains on the clock, we must first look at the smoking gun we placed in our own mouths. In 1974, we fired the Arecibo message at the M13 cluster. We encoded our DNA structure, our population, and exactly where we live. We treated the cosmos like a pen pal, assuming that intelligence implies morality. This is the single greatest cognitive failure in human history. We assumed that because we are curious, they must be kind. But in a universe governed by entropy,
altruism is an evolutionary disadvantage. The data suggests that by the time you finish this video, a response, or a projectile, will have already crossed another light-year threshold toward Earth. The silence you hear isn't emptiness, it's holding its breath.
Let's strip away the Star Trek optimism and look at the cold axioms of cosmic sociology. First, survival is the primary need of any civilization. Second, civilization continuously expands and consumes, but the total matter in the universe remains constant. These two immutable laws create a mathematical pressure cooker. Every civilization is a growing organism in a finite cage. When we look at a bacteria culture in a petri dish, we don't call the dominant strain evil for consuming the resources. We call it successful. Why do we assume a Type 2 civilization harvesting the energy of a star would view us as anything other than a competing bacteria strain on a wet rock? We aren't special. We are just matter that hasn't been harvested yet.
Here is the jolt that breaks the diplomatic model, the chain of suspicion. Even if a civilization wanted to be peaceful, the vast distances of space make trust impossible. If we send a message of peace to a star 100 light-years away, it takes 200 years to get a reply. In those 200 years, the other civilization could have evolved from steam engines to planet killers. You cannot know their true intentions, and they cannot know yours. Because you cannot know, and because the stakes are total extinction, the only rational move in game theory is to strike first. Preemptive destruction is not cruelty, it is the only mathematical guarantee of safety. In the dark forest, the moment you see a rustle in the grass, you don't ask who is there, you shoot.
Critics argue, if they wanted us dead, why aren't we dead yet? This is the arrogance of the mayfly believing the winter is a myth. The galaxy is old. Humans have been broadcasting radio waves for barely a century. On a cosmic scale, we haven't even cleared our throat. However, our technosignature, the leakage of our radar, our television, our city lights, is expanding like a sphere of noise at the speed of light. We are currently illuminating a bubble 200 light-years across. Every star within that bubble knows we are here. If a hunter is lurking in that radius, the trigger has already been pulled. The projectile is simply in transit. The lack of an impact today does not prove safety. It only proves the travel time of the weapon.
Consider the energy economics of interstellar war. It is surprisingly cheap. You don't need a fleet of invasion ships. You don't need Independence Day. You just need a rock. Accelerate a dense projectile to a percentage of light speed and aim it at a sun. The kinetic impact doesn't just destroy a city, it destabilizes the star or strips the atmosphere of the planet. It is a clean kill. No resources wasted on occupation. This is why the silence is so heavy. Advanced civilizations aren't hiding because they are shy. They are hiding because they are camouflaged snipers. Silence is the uniform of the survivor. Noise is the death rattle of the naive. We have spent the last 100 years screaming, "I am here," in a forest full of wolves.
Let's dispel the myth that technology saves us. We think that if we advance enough, we can defend ourselves. But the technology trap is linear. The moment we reach a level where we could theoretically defend ourselves, we also reach the level where we become a genuine threat to the neighbors. This is the zone of death. We are currently entering it. We are dangerous enough to be worth killing, but not strong enough to survive the hit. It is the most precarious moment in a species' history. We are lighting fires in the dark to see better, blinding ourselves to what is circling just beyond the flickering light. The irony? Our quest for knowledge is exactly what pinned the target to our backs. We cling to a dangerous myth that advanced intelligence implies advanced morality. We assume that if they can build starships, they must have outgrown war. This is the Star Trek delusion. But look at us. Our technology has evolved exponentially, yet our tribal instincts have remained stagnant. In the cosmic scale, benevolence is a luxury affordable only to the hidden. This is the breakdown of the wise elder hypothesis. If you broadcast your location, You aren't inviting a mentor. You are inviting a sterilizing immune response from a universe that views new civilizations like a virus. The secret $10 billion mistake of SETI isn't wasted money. It's that we are actively paying to ring the dinner bell.
To understand why silence is survival, you must accept the axioms of cosmic sociology. First, survival is the primary need of any civilization. Second, civilization continuously grows and expands, but the total matter in the universe remains constant. It's a mathematical inevitability. Infinite growth in a finite universe equals conflict. But there's a third, silent variable, the chain of suspicion. Even if a civilization is benevolent, they cannot know if are, and they cannot know if we think are. Without the ability to communicate instantly across light years, trust is mathematically impossible. The safest move is always, unequivocally, to shoot first.
You might argue we are too primitive to be a threat. Why would a god stomp on an ant? Because in the dark forest, ants turn into gods overnight. This is the concept of a technological explosion. To an immortal species observing us, the gap between the steam engine and nuclear fusion is a rounding error. If they spot us today lighting fires, by the time their fleet arrives, we could be capable of erasing them. We are not harmless. We are a time bomb. And the only way to defuse a time bomb is to destroy it before it starts ticking. Our weakness is temporary, but our potential for destruction is infinite. This explains the great silence. It is not that the universe is empty, it is that everyone else knows the rules. The silence is not an absence of life, it is a predator's camouflage. Every signal we send, every radio wave, every Voyager probe is us shouting in a library full of assassins. We look at the stars and wonder, where is everyone? The answer is terrifyingly simple. They are hiding from the same thing that is coming for us. The silence isn't a mystery, it's a scream withheld. And by the time you hear something, it's already too late. But before you succumb to the panic, consider the one mathematical certainty that guarantees this outcome, the variable we ignored. This is the macro loop of our extinction, the axioms of cosmic sociology. Suppose for a moment that life is simply matter fighting to maintain a low entropy state. Axiom 1. Survival is the primary need of civilization. Axiom 2. Civilization continuously grows and expands, but the total matter in the universe remains constant. Do the math. In a finite petri dish, two growing cultures will eventually collide. There is no version of this equation where we share the galaxy. We assumed space was vast enough to accommodate everyone. That was our first fatal error. Space is not an ocean, it is a shrinking cage. And the moment we realize this, we understand that the only rational move for any advanced civilization is not diplomacy, but immediate, preemptive cleansing. We aren't being hunted by monsters. We are being deleted by accountants balancing a cosmic ledger. This brings us to the chain of suspicion, the psychological trap that makes peace physically impossible. Let's say we find a neighbor. We want to be friends. But light takes centuries to travel between us. By the time they receive our message of peace, we might have evolved into warmongers. They know this, and we know that they know this. This is the pattern interrupt that breaks the human heart. Benevolence is irrelevant in the face of relativity. Even if they are kind, they cannot risk that we are not. It is an infinite loop of, I think that he thinks that I think. In game theory, this leads to a Nash equilibrium where the only winning move is to fire first. Silence wasn't a cultural choice. It was a tactical necessity derived from the speed of light. We broke that silence. We looked into the barrel of a loaded gun and pulled the trigger, hoping a flower would come out.
You might ask, why destroy a primitive civilization like Earth? We aren't a threat. This is the arrogance of the linear mind. You are thinking in human years. The universe thinks in eons. This is the concept of the technological explosion. To a godlike civilization, the difference between a caveman with a club and a scientist with a quantum weapon is a blink of an eye. We went from horse-drawn carriages to splitting the atom in less than a century. To an immortal observer, we are not a harmless bug. We are a virus that just learned how to replicate. If they see us today, they don't see what we are. They calculate what we will become in 1,000 years, and the answer is rival. Therefore, the safest time to kill a tiger is not when it's full grown, it's when it is a kitten. Humanity is that kitten, and we just meowed into the darkness.
So, how does the end arrive? We expect fleets of ships, lasers, Independence Day theatrics, but a civilization capable of crossing the stars wouldn't waste energy on pyrotechnics. They would weaponize the laws of physics themselves. The myth of the grand space battle is a lie. The reality is the dual vector foil. Imagine an attack that doesn't blow things up, but simply collapses the third dimension into the second. A weapon that forces 3D space to flatten into a 2D painting. There is no defense, no shelter, no escape. You simply unfold. The solar system becomes a piece of paper, a terrifyingly beautiful artwork trapped in absolute stillness. This is the ultimate nihilism. Your death won't even be violent. It will be a formatting error, a cleanup routine. We won't go out with a bang, but with a flattening.
This leads us back to the start and the answer to the Fermi Paradox. The great silence isn't empty space. It is a graveyard of those who spoke too soon. The big reason you stayed to hear is this: we have already sent the invitation. The Voyager probes, the radio broadcasts, they are already out there, traveling through the dark forest. We cannot recall them. The bottle is open, the genie is out, and it is broadcasting our coordinates to things that view genocide as a hygiene protocol. The only strategy left is not exploration, but concealment. But we are a species addicted to noise. We equate silence with death, never realizing that in the cosmic scale, silence is the only way to live. So look up at the night sky one last time. Enjoy the quiet, because the next sound you hear will be the forest waking up.
But let's strip away the poetry and look at the mathematics of our own extinction. You click this because you think the silence of the universe is a mystery to be solved. That is the 10 billion year mistake. The silence isn't a puzzle. It is the loudest warning siren in existence, and we have spent the last century ignoring it. The premise of the dark forest isn't just science fiction. It is the logical endpoint of game theory applied to cosmic sociology. If you stay for the next hour, I won't just tell you why aliens haven't visited. I will demonstrate with statistical certainty why the first handshake we receive will also be the last moment of our history. The Fermi Paradox isn't asking, where are they? It is screaming, why are they hiding?
This brings us to the chain of suspicion. This is the mechanism that pulls the trigger. Suppose we find a civilization. We don't know if they are good or evil. Even if they are good, they don't know if we are good. And even if we both communicate our benevolence, neither can be sure the other isn't lying to buy time for a first strike. In a universe governed by the speed of light, information lag creates an insurmountable wall of distrust. You cannot negotiate when your message takes 1,000 years to arrive. By the time your hello reaches them, they might have evolved into a warmongering empire. Therefore, the only rational move, the mathematically perfect strategy, is to eliminate any civilization the moment it is detected. It is not cruelty, it is simple, cold efficiency.